Now we're going to talk about encoding. We haven't talked about encoding all day. Yes, you could encode all your files at the same rate, but that is dumb and wasteful. Better yet, do per title optimization, which Zhou Wang, Chief Science Officer for SSIMWAVE, is going to talk to us about.
My name is Zhou Wang. I'm a Chief Science Officer from SSIMWAVE. And actually, I have another hat. I'm also a professor at the University of Waterloo. So in the past 20 years or so, I have been working on different problems related to image and video quality and how to use image and video quality assessment tools to do all kinds of optimization. And of course, encoder is one very obvious and very valuable application. So today I'm going to talk about per title optimization 2.0. Right? So we will explain why we call it 2.0. Right, so first, what is per title optimization? Actually, the idea is very straightforward, simple. So it's all about you want to adapt your encoding bitrate for each title based on your video content. Right, so if you adapt to each title, that's going to be per title optimization. No one is going to stop you to, in the live streaming case, no one is going to stop you to do per channel optimization. So you have many channels. You want to adapt your bitrate based on the behavior of each channels. And no one stop you to do per scene optimization, per gap optimization, per frame optimization, or per block optimization, maybe even go even further, per pixel optimization. So if you think about this, these are not like a new idea. If you look at history and of video compression early from 30, 40 years ago, right? So when people do intensive video compression research and development, this is the thing that people have always been trying to do. It's all about video compression. It's all about you have a bunch of content. They have different properties, and within each content, the content property also vary from time to time, from location to location. How are you going to assign the bits in the most efficient way? Right, so that's all about, indeed, the better name for that is content adaptive encoding. And per title and per scene or per block and per frame, all of these things are just nothing but special case of these things. Right, so if you talk about really where was the change? The change is actually from fixed bitrate encoding to content adaptive encoding. And the intuitive idea is very, very simple, straightforward, because there are easier content, there are more difficult content. For easier content, you want to use lower bitrate. For difficult content, you want to use higher bitrate. That's the only intuition behind that. And in the end, you are expecting to get some benefit. Where are the benefits? Benefits, there could be two kinds of benefits. One is overall, you're going to reduce bitrate. I say on average. The reason is because you are kind of assuming for most of the content I'm going to work with, easier content is going to be most of the stuff. So relatively difficult content is going to be a smaller proportion of all the content I have. I think that's probably the case in most applications. Right, so then on average, you're going to reduce the overall bitrate. The second thing is you can make your quality variation reduce smaller. Right? So because you assign more bitrate to more difficult content and less bitrate to easier content, then overall the quality is going to be smoother. Right? So these are the major benefits. Right? So as I said, this is not like a new idea. It's an old idea, but just coming up time to time, coming back again and again. So we should really, we're really thankful to Netflix because they made a major push recently on per title optimization. So this really attracts more people to work on this problem. And they are trying this per title optimization on their own content. So this has already making huge impact in the field. So people come back to do more content adaptive encoding. Okay, so today's talk is about per title optimization 2.0, right? So then there has to be a 1.0. So what's going to be the major difference when I talk about 1.0 versus 2.0? So when I talk about 1.0, basically what you do is the difference is really about you are working like an artist or you're working as a scientist. Right? So what I believe, the transition from prototype optimization 1.0 to 2.0 is really the approach you're using to work on this problem is becoming an artist approach to a scientist approach. So what do I mean by that? So if you look at the current way most people do content prototype optimization, they do this based on their intuition or heuristic approaches. You have some kind of measurement of complexity of the content. You use that to decide on if this content is more difficult or easier. And then after that, you probably do something what I call shoot in the dark. Basically, you try multiple tries of bitrate. I have this content. I'm trying. I don't know what bitrate I should use to encode that content. What I'm going to do is to try a few different bitrates and see what happens. Then after you try that, you verify the results, either subjective, you can look at the video, you like that or not, or you can use some objective metric to test that, right? So but everything happens after you have already encoded that video. And also, a very common problem in this days encoding is that, what if I have cross-resolution and cross-device problem? So basically, this is saying that I have a high-resolution source video as input. I need to transcode that into multiple resolutions and different bitrate, right? So then you look at the reference video as input and test video as output. They don't even have the same resolution, right? So traditional method like PSNR, structure similarity, and the early version of VMAF, for example, they can't even compare these kind of videos, right? So you have to somehow solve this problem. So for example, Netflix is going to say, OK, let me take the low resolution video. I do some interpolation, make them the same size so that I can compare with the reference video. And these are what we call ad hoc approaches to do this kind of comparison. And also, another important thing is, difficult thing is that for the same video content, if you show that on a big TV or show that on a small cell phone, your experience is going to be different, right? So how I can work with these kind of things, because my users, in the end, my users of my encoded video will watch the video on different kind of devices. How am I going to decide on this? So basically, you have to do some other ad hoc way to deal with these problems, right? So what I mean by prototype optimization 2.0, right? So in this case, we really want to do it like a scientist. Actually, for myself, I have been working as a professor, and we have to do something. I have to teach students to do things more scientifically. How you do these things more scientifically? So basically, whenever you talk about optimization, the first thing is not about how you're going to do optimization. The first thing is you have to give me a cost function. If you cannot define what you mean by optimal, if you don't have a quantitative way to say how optimal one thing is, right, so you don't even talk about optimization. So the first thing you really need to have is to have a defined very clear optimization goal. What are you trying to optimize for, right? So the second thing is, once you have this thing set up, what you hope to do is to hit the right target just one time. You can hit the right target. You don't have to, so basically this is what we're going to talk about later, what we call the quality first principle that can help you to do that. But all these things really rely on a comprehensive quality rate resolution model. You have to have a very clean, nice model in order for you to do things more scientifically. And you also need to use a perceptual quality metric that is consistent with cross-resolution analysis and cross-device analysis. Right, so in the end, what's the difference you can make to go from 1.0 to 2.0 is that you start with something interactive, or manually you do something interactive, you do something, or something inaccurate and expensive because you have to try again and again and again, hoping to hit the target, versus something you can do something automatically, you can do something very accurate and low cost because you only have to try it once. Right, so that's the purpose of prototype optimization 2.0. Okay, so then actually, if you look at what I have just talked about, then you feel like, okay, so really to make prototype optimization 2.0 to work, the key thing is to have a good quality metric. Quality metric is the key thing, right? So you have a list of must-have properties of this quality metric. So you want it to be very accurate in terms of predicting perceptual image quality. You want it to have high speed. You want it to be easy to understand, easy to use. And also you want it to have fine granularity, because you might do per title, per scene, per gap, per frame, per block, even per pixel optimization, right? Once you have such a good quality metric, right? So you also want to have very consistent scoring, not just across content, but also across resolution and dynamic range and viewing device and viewing conditions. And you also want it to versatile, because sometimes, say, I have a transcoder, I receive some source content, I don't have a full reference, don't have a reference for that reference content, but what if the source reference has bad quality by itself, right? So in the end, when I transcode some video, I got pretty low quality, who is the one to blame? It's the encoder or the source, right? So you need to have no reference, full reference, degraded reference, all these kind of options are available for you to make the right decision, right? So also you want it to be end-to-end. You want to have some collaboration between the server side and client side to make the right decision, right? So now I want to introduce you to this new quality metric developed by SSIMWAVE's team called SSIMPLUS, right? So this is something after more than 15 years of research after structural similarity, right? So first, it has really high accuracy, right? So based on our recent test with 10 independent databases that has been rated by subject, SSIMPLUS is the only quality metric ever in the literature that has higher than 0.9 correlation with mean opinion score among all the metrics on average. Okay, so high accuracy, high speed, and if you measure the speed, SSIMPLUS is even faster than structural similarity, and actually if you compare that with PSNR, with VMAF, you find it to be at least 10 times faster than VMAF. Right, so also it's very easy to understand, it's easy to be used. Right, so on the left-hand side, this gives you the quality meter. So it gives you a score between 0 and 100, and it's dividing the whole range into excellent range between 80 and 100, a good range between 60 and 80, and fair range between 40 and 60, poor range between 20 and 40, and bad range between 0 and 20, right? So that gives you some straightforward mapping about your experience to these scores, right? So because it has high accuracy and it's really, really fast, and because of these features, it has already been deployed in large scale. So we already have users who are running thousands of channels 24/7. So basically the difference is that before, when we talk about testing video encoder, what you do is you pick 10 video sequence, each with 10 seconds, and do some compression, you do some testing, you make your decision based on that. But now with SSIMPLUS, what you can do is to run every single video you have and all the derivatives 24/7. You keep running that. And we already have quite some customers running and testing their encoders like that. They test the encoders to work for a day, for a week, for a month, right? So that's how they compare encoders. Right, so you also have very fine granularity. So this gives you an example. On the left picture, you got the compressed video frame, and the right-hand side is what we call the quality map. So the quality map is telling you at each pixel location, if the quality is higher, it's brighter. If its quality is low, it's darker. So I think everyone in the room can see the blocking artifact in the sky, for example. And this has been very clearly identified by the quality map. So it really tells you at each location, each pixel location, what happens to the video. Right. Also, SSIMPLUS has all these properties: cross resolution, cross frame rate, cross user device, cross dynamic range, and cross content. As well as this flexibility, it is doing no reference quality assessment of the source, and also double-ended perceptual fidelity assessment between the source and test. And also combine these two things together into a degraded, what we call the degraded quality assessment. Right, so also we're doing end-to-end quality solution. And you can have multiple monitoring points. And along all these points, we're using exactly the same scale in terms of perceptual scale to measure the quality, such that you get consistent measurement at many, many monitoring points along your delivery chain. So that's what we call end-to-end quality assessment. Right. OK, so let's come back to the property. What do you really want to have? Right. Say an ideal quality metric you want to have, right? So we should really thank Netflix, because on their website talking about per-title optimization, they draw this nice, beautiful convex hull structure. So basically, this picture is telling you that this is exactly what an ideal quality metric should behave across different resolutions. Right, so for example, I have a high resolution 1080p video, right? So this is my high resolution. And also have another resolution, say 720p, right? So I have two high definition resolutions. And I know at very, very high bit rate, right? So the 1080 has always going to be better than 720 because it has high resolution. There's no compression artifacts you can ever see because the bit rate is really, really high. But if you think about what if we drop the bit rate gradually, right? So at certain points, I'm going to see more and more compression artifacts first in 1080p video because you have more content to compress. It's harder to compress than 720, right? So at a certain point, when you drop the bit rate, the curve, what we call the quality rate quality curve of 1080 and 720 is going to cross at a certain point. So that's exactly the crossing point between these two curves. And you can add another resolution over there. So if you draw all these rate quality curve for different resolution together, then you're going to get a structure like that. And then you're going to have a convex hull on top of that. That will really give you what an ideal quality metric should give you when you try that with different resolution to encode the same video content. Right? So that's ideal. But unfortunately, if you do this with PSNR, it's just giving you something random. You do have a lot of curves, and these curves going to cross each other at a certain point, but it's pretty random point. So PSNR basically doesn't tell you something like that. It doesn't give you anything meaningful, right? So PSNR, in that sense, is useless in terms of doing a cross-resolution quality assessment. Unfortunately, VMAF doesn't give you that at all, right? So VMAF don't even give you a cross. In this case, sometimes it gives you a cross. Again, it's random cross. It's meaningless cross. You cannot use that if you talk about cross-resolution assessment. And the nice thing about SSIMPLUS is that it naturally gives you that. For all the content we're running, without designing something just for that purpose, right? So this is coming naturally from SSIMPLUS, because for SSIMPLUS, it's designed based on human visual system models, and all these properties just come naturally, right? So if you look at this picture, 1080 is going to be high at the very, very beginning, and then you have 720 and 576 and so on. These curves are nicely crossed, just like the convex hull, ideal quality metric convex hull structure you have seen on Netflix website. OK, so with this property, then you can talk about doing something science. Now I can tell you I don't need to shoot in the dark. Now what I want to do is that if you use this, what we call quality first principle, actually you can, with one shot, you can get exactly what you want. So let me explain what I mean. So the first thing you want to do is to define target quality level. That's what we call quality first. You define target quality level first. So in this case, I want to get a video that has a quality of 80. I have a profile. I have a ladder of encoder. The second one I want 70. The third one I want 60. The first one I want 50. Right. So I define this. This is my target quality level. I define this quality level first. And then all you need to do is to starting from the y-axis. Remember the difference. If you try from the x-axis, you don't know where to start. You have to shoot in the dark. From y-axis, I have exact target quality level. Say from 80, I just draw a line. I hit something, right? So that point not only will tell me the bit rate, but also tell me the right resolution you should go with that profile. Right? So you can do this with 70, with 60, with 50. You got the cross point, and then you look at where it lives on. It's what is its resolution, what is its bit rate. You got the ladder right away, right? So you don't need to do anything else. Right? So that's the principle. Okay, so let's try this with some simple content.
Zhou, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up. We're about out of time. So could you put a bow on it?
Okay, so I'm just going to finish this. So I just want to give you one last example about this result. So say we have simple content, mid-range content, and difficult content together, and we apply this principle, we got this potato optimization ladder right away. So and these are the ladder for the 3 cases, and these are the bitrate savings if you have a fixed ladder to use. And then you say, on average, a simple content you can save, in this case, 60%, and the middle case you save 25%. But for difficult one, you could have something really difficult. This is telling you need 18.7 more bitrate in order to achieve the same quality level. Right? So that's about it. So I think I can stop here.
All right, round of applause for Zhou.
Thank you.